Hello everyone, Professor Philip Travis here. This week we are looking at the Industrial Revolution. And we are going to have a quiz this week on the reading this week. I'll have that quiz available by Tuesday, so be looking out for that, and it will be on the reading from chapter 19. So we're looking at the Industrial Revolution this week, and it's important to note, and I'll talk a little bit about this image for your factoid this week. The Industrial Revolution really marked a fundamental transformation in the way humans live and the way humans interact, not only in society, but with the environment. As a result of the Industrial Revolution, we will witness a huge growth of cities that grow massively in proportion from the 1800s to the beginning of the 1900s. You witness an era that's driven largely, though initially, the Industrial Revolution began as something in which it was really driven by water power, but ultimately the Industrial Revolution is driven by fossil fuels. And particularly during the height of the Industrial Revolution, you're talking about the use of steam power. And steam engines, of course, use coal, particularly. You could theoretically burn wood, and they did burn wood very early, but wood does not burn as hot as coal. And so the way a steam engine worked is you burned coal and you heat water. And so the water vapor creates a pressure inside a boiler, which is then used to drive pistons. And steam power, it was used in many cases in manufacturing. It was, of course, used to drive locomotives, which became the dominant mode of moving and transporting goods and people by the mid 1800s. And, of course, it drove steamships that not only traversed the rivers and canals, for example, of the United States, but also interconnected the entire world on the oceans and the seas in a way, with a pace and in a way that had really never occurred before. The world historical term, right? Global interconnectivity. The world is more interconnected at this time period than at any other period in history, and it is really due to the use of these fossil fuels, to these various types of technologies. The ramifications of that, though, of course, are changes, particularly for people's living conditions, air pollution in cities, and over the long term, air pollution on a much, or I should say environmental degradation on a much, much larger level, from mining, from the burning of fossil fuels, to chemical pollution and so forth, all of which is connected to the Industrial Revolution. One of the immediate factors, and this is your factoid for this week, one of the immediate factors of the Industrial Revolution on people's lives is it fundamentally changes work, in the sense that work that had once been highly skilled work becomes effectively automated by machines. Now, it's not truly automated. Somebody has to work the machine, but many forms of labor become unskilled forms of labor as a result of the Industrial Revolution, by the production or the use of machines that could perform a task by itself as for one individual that previously would have taken 1,000 individuals to do. The first example, of course, and the first real place for the Industrial Revolution was the textile industry, the industry of cloth making. And the textile industry during the pre-industrial period was part of what was called the putting out system, or the cottage industry system. And textiles, clothing, was made by hand with, hand looms, hand spinning of threads. And this was done usually a small farmhouse. A family would do this, and the husband and the wife both sort of shared in the economy of the household. Well, with the industrialization of the textile industry, you saw that skilled labor and that skilled part of the house industry basically exported to factories, where all the work was being conducted in factories, and where machines that people worked did effectively the production labor capacity of what might have taken 1,000 individuals prior. Many, many, many times more efficient and productive. Well, the ramifications of that, if you don't have a skill as a worker, the ramifications of that is that you are paid far, far less. If there is not a regulation in place to counterbalance a capitalist system, then you will be paid whatever it is, the going rate is for unskilled labor, and it was not very much. The new work for textile workers, and I'll talk about the image here, which relates to the textile industry. The new work for textile workers was loud. It was increasingly dangerous, though monotonous at the same time. The workers were exposed to fibrous materials in the air that caused lung maladies, not unlike the black lung maladies that coal miners suffered from. And they received far less pay. They had to now work longer hours. They had to work on a time shift established by a boss, as opposed to the sort of relative freedom of the cottage industry of doing the work, a skilled, sort of more time-consuming work at home. This resulted in huge social issues during the 1800s. I mean, effectively, the works of Karl Marx, the revolutionary socialists, are inherently connected. They're inherently connected. The Communist Manifesto is inherently connected. That's written in 1848. It's inherently connected to the fundamental changes in society and economics and labor caused by the Industrial Revolution. The image you're looking at here, and this is the factoid for this week, is an image of Luddites. Luddites, they're in the early 1800s, the second decade started in 1811 in Great Britain. Textile workers revolted. They revolted from the factories. They said, this is destroying our livelihood. This is destroying, everything that has been known for generations, effectively. And they went to the factories and they smashed the textile machines. And this is what's being depicted here, are Luddites smashing textile machines in revolt against the destruction of their livelihood at the hands of these machines. A Luddite becomes an adjective for an individual that resists technological sort of change. So that the textile industry is really the first place we find the Industrial Revolution to take hold. And it has very significant ramifications for society and for the conditions and earnings of individuals in work. And it resulted in revolts, like the Luddite revolt, against the machines themselves. Now, of course, we know that revolt, it fails. And the machines go forward, and the world will never go back to a massive use of hand spinning or weaving again. But it speaks to the extent to which or mechanization, to which the Industrial Revolution affects the way people live, affects society. Let's have a great week, and I will see everyone in the discussion forum this week. We do have a discussion forum assignment this week, and of course, don't forget about the quiz. Let's have a great week.